Hello, my name is Pat Trueman. I'm former chief of the U.S. Justice Department's Child Exploitation and Obscenity Section, and currently I'm a lawyer in the Washington, D.C. area. This is the beginning of a series of interviews with prominent people who have written about, researched the issue of harm from pornography. And our guest today is Mark Kastleman. He is the author of this great book, The Drug of the New Millennium: The Brain Science Behind Internet Pornography Use. Mark, welcome.
Thanks, Pat. It's great to be here.
You're also a director and co-founder of a company called Candeo. Tell our listeners a little bit about it.
Well, Candeo was created because we knew that most people who suffer with struggles with pornography use keep that use very secretive. They're in isolation. They're very afraid of the consequences of coming out and getting help. And so we thought if we could provide a safe and anonymous place online for them to start getting the help they need, that we could get a lot of people out of hiding and getting the help and support that's so necessary to recover.
And that's working, is it?
It's actually working very well. We call them our students because we're a psychoeducation and support system, and we have students in 65 different countries now.
So a person who actually got addicted, probably online through the internet, can go to an online site and recover.
Well, that's a really great question, because some people who first hear about Candeo say, well, isn't that like having an alcoholic go to the bar to recover? And our response is that's exactly what it's like. We're actually fighting fire with fire. We want to take the internet, which has become an addiction trigger and dysfunctional in a person's life, and help the brain rewire where it can actually learn to use the internet as a positive and healing tool. And so using the internet is very much a part of the recovery process.
I want to talk maybe in our second segment more about Candeo, because I think that kind of thing, a recovery site where people don't have to maybe spend the kind of money they'd go to a psychiatrist to spend over a series of months, maybe years. But that's your site, which I think is financially available to most people and has a high success rate. I think that's a great program. Mark, we'll talk about that in a minute. What happens to the brain on pornography? I know you wrote about this in your book, which I mentioned earlier. It's available on Amazon. I'm not trying to sell your books, but I do recommend it. It's an excellent source. But what happens to that person who goes online, maybe they're new to pornography? What begins to happen to their brain to lead them to addiction?
Well, I think where the confusion comes in is many people would look at pornography, the pornography question, as strictly a moral issue. And while I believe those are important issues to discuss, the thing we have to really take a look at in our discussion is when pornography is viewed, how does the brain respond to that? And what we find in the studies is that when pornography is viewed, those images come into the eyes and trigger the brain to release its own natural neurochemicals, very powerful neurochemicals, things like dopamine, endorphins, norepinephrine. These are the same kinds of brain chemicals that are released when street drugs are used. And so what we find with pornography use is that it stimulates the pleasure center of the brain at a very high level. Again, just as we see with drug use. And that pleasure center stimulation becomes a drug of choice, a way to self-medicate so that people can hit the mouse button, cause that enormous neurochemical release, and they find that it's a way to escape from the stress and the pressures and all the different things they're facing in life, just as people would turn to other substances.
Mark, I've engaged in conversations both one-on-one and online and in many talks that I've given around the country with people who are avid users of pornography, internet pornography. They have a video collection, et cetera, et cetera. And the common response is, oh, it doesn't affect me. Now, is there such a thing as a person who is a regular consumer of pornography that's not affected?
I would have to say the answer to that is no. Now, of course, we know that if we use the comparison of drugs, there are people that we would call recreational users of drugs, who use once in a while. Probably marijuana would be a great example of that. There are those who become heavily addicted to the drug use. We find the same thing with pornography. There are those who use it on occasion. There are those who become completely trapped in it. But in either case, I believe at a minimum, what pornography always does to the brain is it affects attitudes. And the thing that we find with our Candeo students across the world, and this crosses cultural lines, belief boundaries, languages, what they find is that when they view pornography, it causes them to view people differently, especially women. And they get into this objectification mode where they start to see people as a collection of body parts rather than as real holistic human beings. And I feel that that's the greatest harm that pornography does at the very basic level. Whether you're using it on occasion or constantly, you're going to have a different attitude about people.
Good, Mark. That has to wrap it up for this segment, but I want to tape a second segment with you and talk more about the effect on the brain and what can be done. Our guest today is Mark Kastleman, who is a founder and director of Candeo. The website is candeocan. That's CANDEOCAN.com. And Mark is the author of this book, The Drug of the New Millennium, available at bookstores, at Amazon, any place that has a good collection of books. Mark Kastleman, thanks very much for being with us.
Pleasure, Pat.